Well, not everything, but
All right, human rights. Our penultimate in-class lecture.
what does that mean?
Second to last.
Penultimate.
Penultimate. The ultimate is the last. The penultimate is the second one. All right. That's the beauty of life. Why are you doing this to me?
Do you know if there's a curve?
What?
Like in the human language, the amount of words used, there's a curve to it. The first word we use, which is the, is 2 times more than the second word. And the third word is, the first word is 3 times more than the third word, and it keeps going.
Okay. Struggle for human rights. I did not know that. To deny people their human rights is to challenge their very humanity. Nelson Mandela. Rocky Balboa. No, I'm kidding. Nelson Mandela. Struggle for human rights. How fitting. This is one of those moments in history where I really loathe the fact I work for the state. Because I can't, because I got so much mind to speak and really like being employed. So, all right. No. It's also
We won't snitch.
no, it's also being recorded. So,
We got your back.
all right. No, we're good.
You mute yourself and then tell us. So
No. Again, you can get all. I'm not refuting that.
Right.
Now they know because you said it all.
You can get all this.
Virgin.
You can get all this about me when you're a sophomore in college. All right.
That's unfair.
Life's not fair. It was. You have less.
It's like go behind the
Stop using wisdom again.
All right. Struggle for human rights, life, no slavery, political rights, religious, cultural freedom, not being missiled, to assemble, represents an enduring issue since 1900. A shame not before then, but we'll take it. All right. Oh, wait, sorry. You haven't written in 5 days. I'll give you a second. Okay. By the way, this class is not running next year. No. No. Think about this and be compassionate. How prepared are those rising freshmen after this year of school for this? Okay, all right. That's why we're not doing this. No, we'll bring it. No, when you're juniors, you get to come back here, and I'm gonna let you guys. That'd be cool. But come in the first day and kind of lie to them. Tell them it's gonna be
Bully some kids.
All right.
It's a long class.
This struggle included successes: civil rights for women and minorities, voting rights, freedom. Oh no, that was 18th century, 19th century. And catastrophic failures: genocide and ethnic cleansing, which is sort of like the first cousin of genocide. Yes.
On the last side, when it says it starts at 1900, is that why does it say that?
That's the big push for this concept of rights for individuals starts, because think about it, in the whole 1900s, you have all that decolonization, you have all those independence movements. Just it seems to be that that's when the whole world falls in line. We go from the League of Nations, which is a group of people, to the UN's. Now there's more countries kind of working together, and it becomes an issue. Remember, one of the first things the UN creates is the Universal Bill of Rights for all people. So it just becomes a bigger deal because of all the events that transpire. And they got to pick, and if I'm being honest, they got to pick a start date. And it's the 20th century, so it's going to be easier to find evidence. It's going to be easier to see the connection. Oh, nice. All right.
What is that?
My front yard Halloween. No, I'm kidding. Actually, I have skulls and smoke and good. Oh, my.
I bet you're a good.
No. Halloween's the best decorating. The worst part about Halloween now is you only get like Halloween. And then it's kind of like there's no Halloween season, so we put Halloween up October 1st.
Like a Halloween week.
My next year I'm buying like 8 skeletons. I'm gonna nail them on my house, climbing up my house.
Wow.
If my wife lets me near a ladder. The first genocide or attempt to destroy an ethnic or religious group of the 20th century is alleged to have occurred because they denied it, are the Ottoman Empire during World War I. Sir,
What is it called when it succeeds?
successful genocide.
Well, why is it?
Genocide is an 8-step process. Again, you don't have to kill a single person to be guilty of genocide. Number of deaths doesn't make it a genocide. The plan makes it a genocide.
So I'm thinking first degree murder, like if you have to like plan to kill somebody, then
Premeditated.
Premeditated, first degree premeditated murder. Yes, this is premeditated.
Okay.
There was a whole 8-step plan.
This has an rate step plan or in general, there's a
Genocide in general, by definition now, genocide follows a pattern.
The 7-step plan.
If you get to that point, chances are,
Might as well just top it off.
all right. Not funny. These are actual people who had actual families who are actually dead. So in 1915, the Ottoman government, what is now Turkey and other places, was accused of, they accused Christian Armenians of cooperating with the Russians. Remember, this is World War I, so they're the bad guys. You got the Ottoman Empire with the Axis power, Central power. And you have the Russians with the Allied powers. And the Armenians, the Christians, were alleged to have been assisting the Russians. Probably not too far-fetched. Armenian Christians, Orthodox Russians. Remember, this is pre-revolution. So they are Eastern Orthodox faith. They are Christian, one of the offshoots. So not a far-fetched thing. Yes, sir.
where are they?
Dead.
Like in this map, where would they?
Well, they're just right there. Armenia. They're in this part. They're in Western Turkey, and they're in
So-
other parts of Turkey. They were living in this. They were living amongst the Turks.
And they have like this kind of bordering the Russians.
Well, they're all throughout Turkey. That's where they're marched to. Like the Cherokee. We must go back to an older time if we want to appreciate what uncontrolled Turkish rule meant to Armenians. It did not mean religious persecution. It meant utterable contempt. They were dogs and pigs to be spat upon. If their shadow darkened the Turk, to be outraged, to be the mats on which he wiped the mud from his feet. It was the inevitable result of centuries of slavery, centuries in which nothing that belonged to the Armenian, neither his property, his house, his life, his person, nor his family, was sacred or safe from violence, capricious, unprovoked violence. Resist, then death. And that was written in 1890, 25 years before. Yes, Ben?
So it says that it's an attempt to destroy like a minority group.
Yes.
So could it, like for example, in India, like what was the rule with the Muslims were over the Hindus of India, like the Muslim government?
Well, yeah, but the Muslims were always the minority.
Yeah, I know, but like if the Muslim government tried to it's pretty far fetched. But if they were
Okay, yes. Typically, you go after a minority because there's something wrong with them. They're not you, typically. But there's nothing stopping, a froggy feeling minority from stepping up and trying to take out the majority. No. But typically and historically, it's always been these people after these people. But yeah, you could. And to answer your question, Ben.
There's Armenian.
Huh?
There's Armenian.
Ottomans deported Armenians from the empire. Up to 1.5 million died of starvation, disease, exposure to elements, or executions. Then you're like Sebastia, Erzurum, Bitlis, Deir el-Zor. Those were all massacre sites. Those are the dots from whence all the way into Greece Armenians were yanked out. Because remember, even back then, that was part of the Ottoman Empire. Sam!
Why did they deny it? The Turk.
Well, how does it make it? Why does anybody, an 8-year-old kid, did you eat that cookie? No. Why do we deny it?
We don't want to
You don't get in trouble for it.
Or if we like wait a second, my computer decided to not connect.
Okay.
I mean,
We're all waiting.
This doesn't work like the next.
I don't, yeah, no, go ahead. Oh, there he is. All right. So we just let that sink in.
TV taking over.
It kind of seems like.
Yeah, it's not.
What?
If they said they did genocide and take responsibility and say they're working to fix it or something, it won't be as bad as them just like denying it, because
No, and they could get in the EU, which is what they want. Was it last week he called out and said, okay, America, or 3 weeks ago, now it's been a while. When Biden said, dude, that's genocide, to which they fired back. What about the Native Americans? So,
Have we ever been?
huh?
Have we ever been?
No, and that's, well, no, I just don't think. Well, look, it took until Clinton for America to apologize for slavery. I mean, we were a little slow on that. No, I'm not sure if I mean, look, they have casinos. And that doesn't take away all their land, but at least now they can take away, Americans' money. Kind of worked it out that way. No, but they've never said we didn't do that. Like when people called into question, like the smallpox blankets that we sent to Native American tribes, no one says, no, we didn't, because we did. All right. Which is something I'll never be able to talk about. The North Carolina General Assembly has their way. We are great. All right.
Wait. If you keep teaching key classes, is they keep part of the North Carolina stuff?
Well, they want all our lesson plans posted, and they want to do away with social race theory. They don't think it exists, and they want to go back to great man theory, which is part of the reason why I'll never teach American history again. So that many people died. There are mass graves that were found along the way. Mass graves are going to be ubiquitous. You're going to see them in all. I mean, the numbers just get too great. By the way, one of the reasons for the gas chambers, one of the reasons in the gas chambers was because psychologically, it was getting too hard on the Germans to actually shoot people, to look at them and shoot them. So they wanted to gas them to remove the guilt from the Nazis. That was one of the reasons. And they were more efficient. You can go and get it. Yes. After him? Okay. I didn't forget him. All right. Turkey continues to deny the intent to eradicate Armenians. Not a genocide, just the results of war and disease and self-defense.
Wouldn't mass graves spread disease?
Not if you did it in an unpopulated area. But yeah, typically, I mean, Chinese used to launch bodies at people in catapults, diseased bodies.
They did that in Europe.
Mm-hmm.
And how did they not get it on themselves?
Just keep them in a bag or something, like a cloth, and you
Just wrap them up in something
Yeah.
and catapult.
and then the cloth explodes on the castle walls.
People just see bodies flying.
But they were diseased bodies.
And cows. Cows are more.
Yep, cows. Like
Did it actually work?
Yes. If you would basically starve them out and grow disease.
Yeah, you would siege mentality. So you'd surround the cities and no supplies can come in. And then while they're weak because they're hungry, you lob the diseased carcasses in.
And
There was,
Yeah.
there was
Yeah,
no
but
mercy.
if you tried to go in and claim the city after they surrendered, then you just get infected.
Yeah. So you send in your slaves.
Or you're just low level soldiers.
Yeah, just send in the infantry.
Also, they didn't know what Germans were.
Facts. All right.
They just knew that it hurt.
All right, so the dark blue countries recognize the events as genocide. The less blue countries, certain political parties, certain regions in the country recognize it as genocide, which means certain others don't. Red, and you can see there are two.
One.
Well, no, the other one,
The other one's like last
Azerbaijan. They don't think it ever happened, and then they don't officially recognize it, but you got to think the Pakistani are going to be sympathetic, taking into account what happened in 48. All right. So there you go. And then you got all the gray. They're like, I got my own issues. I don't know. But we do not, as a country, as one government,
We're a democracy.
recognize it as genocide.
Wait, but didn't we? Well, Biden.
Biden did, but again, a certain political party.
What does it?
We're
take?
always going to be left blue then.
Oh, what does it take? Does it take
I don't know what, yeah, that's an excellent question. Something so horrific that you cannot not agree. Although I don't know how that's not, but I don't know. I don't know. And maybe one day we'll all coalesce around it, or maybe one day we won't.
So why would some countries they get like a huge genocide? Then
They go to court.
I get fined usually.
They go to the world court and they get sanctioned, and the military and the UN goes in and oversees their stuff. And yeah, but the issue is, you on your phone? Yeah. Oh, you're just looking down. You got that phone posture. All right. But the issue with genocide, and it's, by the way, it's a pretty decent elective here. It's just 18 weeks of death. So kind of prepare yourself for that. But you go into how
punishment.
yeah. You want, like, we are so reticent to call an act genocide because if you do by convention, you have to act. So if we say that was a genocide, then America has to intercede. So we'll say something like it's a civil war. So it's between them. Civil war also connotes both sides have a fighting chance, or all the sides have a fighting chance. But it keeps you from obligating yourself, because even now, as global as the world is, every country doesn't like their sovereignty threatened, and every country, which goes back to the UN thing from last week, and every country, you have to think every country's got skeletons in their closet. And I don't mean, you know what I mean? Like, they've got secrets. And to go in, there's that. But you can do bad things in your past, recognize they're bad things, and then stop people from doing them because you know they're bad things. It's okay. I mean, so I don't know. We're just the world knows what to do. There's just a paralysis of analysis. They're overthinking. And if the UN had more power, I was in charge, they would take care of it.
How are you going to give them more power?
You let them have their own standing army.
What country's going to give them more?
Who cares? You're in the UN, you supply troops. Period.
You supply troops anyway.
No, it's a separate, I see you, it's a separate army. It no longer belongs to the United States. It no longer belongs to Germany. It no longer belongs to Kuwait. You send troops, there's a UN person, and it's a UN army to go in and stop these things. Sir, ma'am. Yes, you may. Yep. All right. 1932 and 33, the Holodomor, death by starvation in the Ukraine. A Republican Soviet considered a genocide by many historians. Just heard about this, like reading this slide. Not right now, but preparing for this. Again, there are all sorts of ways to kill people. There's actually, I mentioned this, there's passive genocide, where you do nothing to help a group that needs help. If you know a group needs help and you willingly don't send help,
Like in Ireland?
so during the potato famine, the English had these things called the corn laws, because Ireland was part of England. All the corn that they grew went to England first. So even when the potato failed, corn goes to England first. And there is Ukraine. And it's much bigger now, but, well, and smaller. So. The Ukrainians protested Stalin's collectivization policies by refusing to meet government food quotas. So remember, there are lots of ways you can get back at the government. And one of them is we're supposed to grow 50 bushels. How about 30? Take that. Just don't meet your quota.
There's a person with a tiny nose right there.
What?
It looks like I have a really small thing on the front.
A child?
Yeah.
It's a child.
Yeah, but it's like a really tall child.
This one?
Yeah. It's either floating or this
No, he's got a hood on, and it's tight to his head. He's- I don't know if he's tall because I don't know. I mean, I don't know the height of these people. So, all right. Stalin came to power after Lenin's death in 24, inheriting a government that was still struggling to control an unwieldy empire. The new leader soon turned his attention toward Ukraine, the largest, most troublesome of the non-Russian Soviet republics. Ukrainians were a fiercely independent people, given to ignoring directives from Moscow and stubbornly maintaining their individualistic agrarian way of life. That independent spirit made them a problem. At a time when Stalin wanted to build a strong industrial base, they clung to their rural peasant traditions. At a time when he wanted to abolish private ownership of land, they refused to surrender their farms. In short, the Ukrainians had become a threat to the revolution. They would not play nice. They would not acquiesce. So, you're Stalin, what do? You're exactly right. They seized the limited food supplies and seeds. Between 2.5 and 7.5 million people died of starvation. And that just shows you the highest percentages of those who died.
There's a very wide range.
Yep.
We just don't know.
Yeah, and I mean, it's 1930s record keeping. It's everything's still written by hand. And then you don't know what deaths are attributed to starvation and what deaths are attributed to other things. I mean, there's all these things that go into calculating deaths now. I mean, going that.
I would have expected more to die, honestly. I think it's like Ukraine was like the breadbasket of the Soviet.
Who recognizes it as a genocide and who doesn't?
What's that little red state?
That's the other part of Russia.
Leningrad. It's just a way to the open.
Yep. The cheese stands alone. The cheese. I mean, well, we're all in on that one. All right. So there you go. England doesn't. France, that's look at who like the non-committal ones. That's fascinating. All right. Germany should never vote. Well, yeah, they should. They can move past it. What have been historical consequences of the Great Famine genocide? By ravaging the countryside, the famine not only destroyed millions of innocent human beings, estimates range between 4 and 10 million. Also retarded by generations the natural evolution of Ukrainian nationhood, the tradition of Ukrainian values of hope, individualism, hard work, and spirit. Fear, apathy, alcoholism became the hallmarks of the collective farm. Cities became bastions of Russification. In general, traumatized survivors found themselves voiceless cogs in the huge bureaucratic machine that the Soviet Union had become. I'm gonna have to go find that book. So I know nothing about it in the Bible. I'm gonna read about it. And again, this quote and the behaviors in the 1930s, you would think would kind of throw water on that whole Putin thing that the Ukrainians are Russian. They want no part of Russia, ever. But, you know, and I'm just reading, I'm just taking that based on what I'm reading here. I'm not offering any opinions. Oh, okay. Now on to something we all know. During World War II, the Nazis killed approximately 6 million Jews and approximately 3 million dissenters. What is the actual term? It's not gypsy. A student corrected me, and I've always tried to remember it. I can't. And homosexuals, handicapped people, people of color, all those people in Europe. It's an ethnic group of people in Eastern Europe.
What are they? Sorry. What are they?
They just move around place to place.
What is it?
A dissenter is someone who protests the government. Hitler's bad. Nazis are horrible. Yeah, get on the train. All right. Or go to jail. Nazi policy regarding Jews represents a winding path that led eventually to the decision of mass extermination. It was not the original plan. The original plan was labor. Munitions factories and work them to death, but work for the Reich. Him and Himmler and Goebbels are like, you know what, they just got to try. It's all part of the final solution. They just had to go. Jews were a small and vulnerable minority in Germany and Europe, were often scapegoats for problems. There's your larger concentrations. France, the Netherlands, Czechoslovakia, oh, this would be Poland, Russia, mostly Eastern Europe and the Slavic states. Tiny bit of people, 3,500 Jews in Portugal, 4,000 Jews in Ireland. All right. Nazi propaganda as directed by Hitler and his, I think Goebbels was his advertising man, his propagandist. Convinced Germans that Jews were an inferior and dangerous race. Vermin. It is one of the steps in genocide is to dehumanize them, to make them be seen as something less than. Vermin. Those are mice, rats. Vermin are easier to kill. In Rwanda, they were cockroaches. It's something easier to kill. Yes, ma'am.
In the one on the left, did they purposely use letters that look like Hebrew characters?
That were what?
They look like Hebrew.
Like Hebrew characters? Yes. Which is ironic because they're written in Hebrew-looking characters, but red letters. Okay. All right.
So those are Hebrew.
No,
No.
no.
So it's German?
It's German, just made to look like Hebrew.
Huh.
And then that's straight up German interest. I don't know. Yeah. Hitler's secret police, the Gestapo, successfully silenced critics of his Jewish policies. There were people in Nazi Germany who went along with it because that was safer than not going along with it. There were people in Nazi Germany who believed what Hitler believed. And there are people who protested or left. And it is the 1940s. So it would not surprise me if a small sliver of the German population had no idea this was going on. Because remember, there were still Japanese fighting on the islands in the South Pacific 10 years after World War II ended, thinking they were still a war. So, I don't know. I don't think as many as confessed to not knowing, didn't know, but I don't think it's too far-fetched in the 40s, pre-cell phone, to not know.
So most Germans knew about the Holocaust?
They knew about the camps. I don't know if they knew about the extermination, but they knew about the camps.
Like they thought they were exporting.
Labor camps, yeah, prisoner camps, yeah. The Nuremberg laws deprived Jews of German citizenship, required them to wear the yellow Star of David or other stars, depending on what camps you went to. And this is where the whole one drop theory comes into play. The Nuremberg laws established a pseudo-scientific basis for ID. Only people with 4 German grandparents were German. Jewish were people descended from 3 or 4 Jewish grandparents, black circles in the top row. In the middle stood people of mixed blood. They're first or second degree Jew. Eventually, everybody to the right of the 4 will go somewhere. But they work it down, like they go back and back and back to show you. So Jew, first, second, and then that's all German. And then 4, so technically, Hitler stands in violation of his own policy.
Well, he had
Jewish grandparents. Yeah. But when you're in charge, it is do as I say.
Yes, he also wasn't it like about like blonde hair and blue eyes and he had
Yeah, but there's this mythologized. I'll get that word out today. View of the model specimen. It's Chris Hemsworth, Thor, basically, is the model male. Although he's English, I know. Anyway. The Nazis organized campaign of violence against the Jews is called Kristallnacht, which is the Night of Broken Glass. They targeted Jewish businesses and synagogues and broke all the windows, hence broken glass. Okay. Oh yeah, they claimed it was an uprising by ordinary Germans. Actually, it was a carefully planned. The government ordered squads of brown shirts into the streets. Their job was to destroy and terrorize. The Gestapo or secret police received orders not to stop the violence. Instead, they were to sweep through the burning neighborhoods, arresting Jews. Kristallnacht was a turning point. The Nazis stepped up their efforts to Aryanize the German economy. Jews had been losing their property since Hitler came to power. Now taking it from them became an official policy. In addition to this, Jewish victims of Kristallnacht had to pay for damages out of their own pocket. They could not collect insurance. When World War II began, Nazis sought to answer the Jewish question, what to do with the Jews, in a cost-effective, permanent way. A number of potential answers to the Jewish question were explored. Ghettoization, deportation. It's putting them in a neighborhood. The term ghetto actually goes back to roughly the 14th century in Italy, where in Italy they made a Jewish neighborhood, and you'd go out into town and you'd work, and then at night you go into your neighborhood and they'd lock the gate, and that was the Jewish place. So they were separated from the rest of the population. That's what a ghetto is. It has been culturized and changed over time in America, but ostensibly it's the same thing. That's what people hoped all the poor and black people would be. The final solution was adopted: exterminate the Jews in 42. So 3 years into the war, they're like, you know what? Deportation is too costly. Ghettoization is too costly. Death camps were built to eliminate Jews. Auschwitz, Chelmno, and Treblinka. Dachau was a work camp. Have you seen Schindler's List? Anybody?
What's that?
It's the movie where Spielberg should have stopped and not made it anymore. It's about what's his first name? Something. Oskar Schindler was German who was making money off Jewish labor, and throughout the course of the war, he realizes what he's doing, and then starts freeing Jews. It's a couple of scenes that are a little. And it's in black and white. The section is one thing. Anyway, sorry, I'm a dad. You're all my children. Because of the sex scenes, I can't show you. Anyway, otherwise, it's an awesome, awesome movie, and it should have been where Spielberg stopped. Like, it's his Michelangelo. Like, it's his Pieta. All right. Okay, so what we have here are those are all camps: Buchenwald, Dachau, Turnstag, Grosshosen, Torgau, anyway, and on as I practice. And then other ones like Sobibor was a horrible camp. There's Auschwitz, one everybody knows. All right, this shows you from whence they came. That's the percentage of Jews taken from those regions. Also remember too, it's relative because it says like 35 to 59% of the Jews in Norway were taken. It's at 12. I mean, I don't know if it's that large a population. However, that's where they went. And then there's Switzerland. In 45, the Nuremberg, not to be confused with Nuremberg, the Nuremberg trial saw victorious Allies punish 22 surviving Nazis for the Holocaust. That is Hermann Goering. He's the leader of the Luftwaffe, the Air Force. I think he killed himself before it could be held. Okay. This is from the trial of major war criminals before the International Military Tribunal. They went from November of 45 to October of 46. Germany became one vast torture chamber. Cries of its victims were heard around the world and brought shudders to civilized people everywhere. The proof here will be so overwhelming that I venture to predict that no word I have spoken will be denied. Maybe not dead. The recognition of individual rights in the Enlightenment, the 1700s. Going back to the Enlightenment. Was championed in the human rights movement after World War II. This gets us the UN. This is also why 1900 seems to be the benchmark here. This goes back to the UN and the Universal Bill of Rights, which will be next, I bet. There it is. The Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Anyone know who that is? No,
Eleanor was.
Eleanor Roosevelt. Very good. 200 points. All right. Some of the things, all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. They are endowed with reason and conscience and should act towards one another in a spirit of brotherhood. That's the first one. If that was adhered, there'd be no need for the rest of them. Race, color, we know it's European. Sex, language, religion, political or other opinion, national or social origin, property, birth, or other status. Everyone has a right to life, liberty, and security of person. No one shall be held in slavery or servitude. Slavery and slave trade shall be prohibited in all their forms. Child traffickers, those countries harboring them, should face this court. All are equal before the law. Everyone has a right to freedom of movement and residence within the borders of each state. That goes into ghettoization. Again, South Africa, hi, I'm looking at you. All right.
Except, can they really apply this to that?
Well,
minority?
and that's almost every country is. And that's the big sticking point with the UN is sovereignty. It's just, anyway, frustrates me. Okay. And then nothing in this declaration may be interpreted as implying for any state, group, or person any right to engage in any activity or perform any act aimed at the destruction of any of the rights and freedoms set forth herein. Yeah. Yeah. So in other words, it's been written. Look what it says. In 2011, all 193 member states of the United States agreed to the terms of the declaration. They all agreed to this. It took until 2011 before they all said, yeah, okay.
And some of them still.
Human rights. Despite the commitment to protect human rights, the modern era has witnessed both successes and failures protecting these rights. In 48, the UN, blah, blah, blah. The idea of never again becomes the mantra of the UN. Both world wars liberated women in Western countries. Women performed vital roles at home while millions of men were at war. Now you're going to see some of the shifting rights in some parts of the world vis-a-vis other parts. Women's suffrage around the world, when they got the vote. The black is they still can't. 2 countries. No, you cannot. If you're a woman.
Like if you're a man.
Yes. Yes, but this is women's suffrage. Okay, all right.
Wait, so what countries can women not vote?
Saudi Arabia and is that UAE or
Yeah, I think it's. So New Zealand and Australia were the first.
well, New Zealand was before 1900. Yep. Which
Sure.
again, they also have what, the youngest president, like prime minister. Then New Zealand, she's like 33, right in the country, like something like that. I know she's under 40. I think. We were in the 1920s, as was Mongolia. All right, okay. Women gained the right to vote in the Netherlands in 1917, Canada and Sweden. This always confuses me as a kid. It's only one E. Why is it Sweden? In 1918, the United States in 1920, and Britain in 1928. Mary Poppins' boss just couldn't get the vote. All right. Polling booth, way out. By 1960, most Latin American, Asian, and African nations had extended the right to women as well. And remember, a lot of these African states are Muslim states. The next thing we're going to look at, success with women's suffrage led to other victories in the struggle for human rights, including civil rights movement in the United States. That's 1968 or 64. Well, actually, today's the anniversary of Brown versus Board of Ed. In this day in history, Brown versus the Board of Education was, yep. Did you see the lie? Did you see the rumor on Twitter that Carl Zeus was dead over the weekend? He's not. He's not dead. Carl Zeus?
Is that-
CNN 10? Your teachers in middle school did not show CNN 10?
We saw
I
CNN.
can't even watch those every single
Yeah,
day.
Mr. Penny.
Heck yeah, he's the only person, he's the guy, Carl Azouz. Hi, I'm Carl Azouz, this is Spinning at You Live. He says it at the start of every. They had this whole bit on Palestine, and he got his hand slapped.
When he said he get fired.
No, he can't fire Carl Azouz, man. Look, of all the news on I showed that for the first time 2 years ago, and the very first day of school, I got 2 emails from parents asking why I was showing CNN.
Yeah.
The very first day,
Why? What's wrong with CNN?
because it's ultra left-wing biased fake news. To which I replied, well, they're familiar with it. It's 10 minutes, and if you actually watch it, it's the most balanced news broadcast on the planet. I said, look, I'd love to have them watch Reuters or read The Economist, but let's meet them where they are, sir. So.
So the 10 part isn't very biased, but
All news is biased. You have to watch both sides.
I said it's fair.
Sure. All right. Oh, wait. Civil rights protect individual freedoms and ensure the ability to participate in civil and political life in the state without discrimination. That's what they are. They allow you the protection of your country's constitution. They allow you to take part in it, irrespective of how you look. African Americans had civil rights denied by black codes and by Jim Crow laws passed by southern states. And organizations like the KKK and that group in Indonesia or wherever that was. I believe that the Klan at its origins, was actually just a bunch of Confederate soldiers getting together to talk about life after the war, and then it kind of morphed. By the 1930s in America, the Klan had control of Chicago. The Klan had people in Congress. Like, it was a huge, powerful political driving machine.
How'd they get rid of
Just stop. Just got pushed out. They got arrested and broken up and put down, and people started to realize that, stop. Up north. In 1896, the Supreme Court established this constitution. Okay. So where separate but equal comes in. It's Plessy versus Ferguson. A black man had a first-class ticket. They said, no, sit in the back. He said, but I have a first-class ticket. They said, nope. So long as what is afforded both sides is the same, you can separate them. As long as they both have a school, it's not a crime. As long as they both have a hospital, it's not a crime. Let's talk about the quality of the thing, just the existence and the availability of the thing. And this was the law until 1954. That's what we're talking about today, until Brown versus the Board of Education. In the early 1900s, 20% of eligible black voters actually voted in the United States. Only 20% of all those who were eligible to vote voted. They were intimidated, discriminated against. You had to pay a poll tax or take a literacy test. If you couldn't pass this test, you couldn't vote. No. If they were foreigners. In fact, bless you, coming off the boat on Ellis Island, bless you, you had to be able to read, bless you. You had to be able to read parts of the Bible in English to get off the boat. It's a cool, go to Ellis Island, take the tour, use the headset, fascinating. Oh my gosh, if we were closer to New York, we'd go all over. Okay. In 54, as today, Supreme Court reversed previous rulings arguing separate but equal. Not possible. Forcing public schools and facilities to desegregate. Literally forcing. The National Guard went south, just like Reconstruction. Yeah.
Did that friend say Ray Smith checking communism?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
So it was a 6.
Oh, really? Okay. Maybe it's this way. Maybe it's this. That's what it said on History Today, my little email. I got to question my sources now. I'll get appeal to that. All right. Martin Luther King Jr. led the civil rights movement using nonviolent civil disobedience, boycotts, marches, and demonstrations, just like, yes, Gandhi. He modeled himself, some of it, after Gandhi. That and he was the son of a preacher, man. So, you know, that's all you get. Mercifully. I'm in Birmingham because injustice is here. I could not sit idly by in Atlanta and not be concerned about what's happening in Birmingham. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. What affects one directly affects all indirectly. I get it, sir. Thank you. In 1964, the Civil Rights Act banned racial segregation in public facilities, and the Voting Rights Act banned discrimination during elections. That's great. The challenge is enforcement. Because if this was enough, the Cherokee wouldn't have moved. Enforcement's the key. The moral will of the people. Oh, my goodness. We've lost it South for a generation, LBJ. Basically, what he's saying is that there'll be no more Democrats voting Republican. There'll be no more Southerners voting Democratic for the next 25 years. That's what this legislation did. This legislation is when the Republican Party went south, because they always talk about how there were Dixiecrats, which were conservative Republicans or conservative Southerners. The Republican Party just switches its base and goes south because of these legislations. In the middle of something. Oh, I'll see your story. Something. Big deal. Dominoes. Check it out. That's not nice. Okay. Despite successes in women's suffrage and civil rights movement, human rights abuses and genocides have occurred since World War II. Right. Just pick a country in Africa. The policy of apartheid in South Africa, which ended in 1990, represents one of the great human rights abuses of the 20th century. Sorry. I heard a whoop. Is that Hampton?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. No worries. All right. Oh, whoops. In 1951, China invaded neighboring Tibet. Tibet was promised autonomy and then crushed all resistance to Chinese rule. So they crushed all of it. The Chinese did to rule their country. Where is he? Oh, no. There he is. The Dalai Lama, the spiritual and political leader of Tibet, fled Tibet and accuses China of cultural genocide, imposing their culture on Tibetans. Again, genocide takes more than one form. You can remove a culture from the planet, but still keep the bodies there. Just by removing any semblance of their culture and superimposing yours. That is cultural genocide.
Have the Chinese pulled out of?
No. China clashed with Tibetan protesters as far as 2008. Protesters, many nations want Tibetan freedom but fear angering China and risking trade relations. But,
Wow, cheap labor.
no, but you say that, and we need to think about this, and as I'm going through this now. We see the horrible nature here. We understand that. But pretend you're President H. Okay? I'm not going to say your last name. It's being recorded. So you have to weigh this with home. What are you willing to give up? I mean, that's all. It's rhetorical. But I mean, I understood your response. I get the cynicism in this note. But there's probably not a more difficult job on the planet, other than parenting, than being a leader of a country, because of how much is at stake with every decision you make. That's why they look like this year 1 and like this year 8. It's exhausting, and you're never not working. You're never not the president. You're never off on the weekend going on vacation. Never. So you gotta kind of, you don't have to agree with this sentiment, but you need to see it. That's all I'm saying. I don't, but I understand it. In 68, anti-US feelings in Cambodia, associated with the Vietnam War, allowed guerrillas called the Khmer Rouge to seize control. Khmer Rouge. I don't know what Khmer means. I know Rouge is red. All right.
Well, that's probably has something to do with communism, right? Basically.
Perhaps. And here is Cambodia, right here. There's Laos, there's Vietnam, etc. Richard Nixon's May 70 invasion of Cambodia created 130,000 new. Oh, the Khmer are Canadian. Oh, there you go. They're Cambodian mountain people. So it's a group. It's the Red Mountain people. Refugees, according to the Pentagon, by 71, 60% of the refugees surveyed in Cambodian towns gave U.S. bombing as the main cause of their displacement. The U.S. bombardment of the Cambodian countryside continued until 1973. And from the ashes of rural Cambodia arose Pol Pot. Pol Pot was the leader of the, he's the leader, Communist Party. He used the bombing, devastation, and massacre of civilians as recruitment propaganda and as an excuse for its own brutal, radical policies. Again, communism enters. Remember, every time communism entered in the country, what kind of steps did they take? What did Stalin do? What did Mao do? Well, I get that, but what was part of the revolution? Okay,
Industrial.
they industrialized. What else did they do? Who do they target?
Eliminated anyone.
You eliminate your threats. You eliminate the oppressors. You eliminate the intelligentsia. You eliminate threats. So they do the same thing. They reprogram people. Everybody's going to work for the state. They all kind of begin the same way. But yet they're all different because they're primarily agricultural at their core. Yeah.
The Khmer wasn't it wasn't like an ancient like civilization prior in South Asia.
So they're the mountain. So they're descendants of that civilization.
Yeah, they're probably like saying like they're the new one.
Right. The Khmer Rouge, led by Pol Pot, wanted to return Cambodia to year zero by eradicating all Western influence. Year zero.
Is it actually Pol Pot?
I'm sure that's translated. I'm sure we don't pronounce it right. Yes, but yes, Pol Pot is. Yep. No one makes that up. No one chooses that. All right. There he is, Pol Pot. Excellent movie about his reign called The Killing Fields. Pol Pot began by declaring this is year zero and that society was about to be purified. Capitalism, Western culture, city life, religion, and all foreign influences were to be extinguished in favor of an extreme form of peasant communism. True communal life. All foreigners were thus expelled, embassies closed, any foreign economic or medical assistance was refused. The use of foreign languages was banned, newspapers, television stations were shut down, radios and bicycles confiscated, and mail and telephone usage curtailed. Money was forbidden, all businesses were shuttered, education halted, healthcare eliminated, parental authority revoked. Thus, Cambodia was sealed off from the outside world. All Cambodia's cities were then forcibly evacuated. At Phnom Penh, 2 million inhabitants were evacuated on foot into the countryside at gunpoint. 20,000 of them died along the way. So when he's saying year zero, he means year zero. Sir.
So like what are they supposed to do? Are they just
Farm and live and sustain themselves.
Are they gonna farm with their technology?
They didn't have technology before, and we made it to 1970. That's great. That's not what they care about. And how do we, I see your hand, and how do we know how they're going to live if we don't allow them to try?
Because we can look at what
Sure we can, because we're 2021.
no, we can look at like what was it like.
Sure we can. And there are those people who would argue there's nothing wrong. Look, the entire transatlantic world from Russia east, with the exception of China and Japan, has moved this way. Then we gotta get our people fed, first. Care for ourselves first. Be Cambodian first. That's what they're saying. And it's their culture. So who are we to say don't do that? They'll either succeed or they won't. They'll either allow help or they won't. He'll either be overthrown or he won't. Spoiler alert. Okay. Khmer Rouge soldiers were on the streets when I awakened before dawn. 4 to 6 men patrolled, moved through the avenues and the alleys of Phnom Penh, evicting everyone from homes, shops, and shelters. No delays. Troublemakers killed on the spot. Animals were slaughtered to intimidate owners. Orphanages, monasteries, hotels, hospitals were empty. Doctors and staff were killed if they resisted expulsion. Hospital patients too weak were killed on site. When the resignation of the remaining people was over, registration, a leader of the Khmer Rouge showed up. He stood before the people holding a microphone in one hand. He gathered the new people, primarily city people, like you, to listen to his speech. I am the new leader of Cambodia. From now on, you have to address the new government as Angka. There are no homes for you to return to. You have to work as a group from now on. No one can own property. Everything you own belongs to Angka. No more city lifestyle. Everyone has to dress in black uniform. My mother looked at my father with concern. No one can question Angka, he said. If you have courage to question Angka, you will be taken to the re-education learning institution. This meant you'd be executed. Everyone, including my parents, was numb. We could not think. Our bodies were shaking and our minds were paralyzed by the imposing speech of Angka. And now what gets me is, where did this take root? Like, that's the fascinating thing about what the Khmer Rouge do. Like, where did this take root? More than 1 million killed in Cambodia in the killing fields, including intellects, professionals, minorities. Again, year zero. Smart people create more smart people, and smart people like change. Right, Gia? Those are all skulls. And now for something
Oh, no. Oh, no.
not different. Okay. Hutu, Tutsi.
The exact.
But they would tell you no. Which again, is fascinating. 1994, genocide occurred in Rwanda. As the Hutus, as the Hutus, 85% of the population, and Tutsis, 14% of the population, struggled for power. And remember, it wouldn't be like that if Europe hadn't been colonized and those borders hadn't been arbitrarily created. Hutus, Tutsis, Hutus, Tutsis. All right. In 93, Rwanda, one of Africa's smallest countries with just 7 million citizens, remember that number, was deeply troubled country with a deeply troubled past. Decades earlier, under colonial rule, the Belgians had used the Tutsis, Rwanda's aristocracy and minority, to enforce their rule over the Hutu, who were mostly poor farmers. The Belgians created an idea whereby the Tutsi were a master race, the Hutu an inferior race. And ethnic identity cards were issued. Much like in South Africa, an apartheid-like system was imposed. All privileges went to the Tutsi minority, and the Hutu majority was almost in bondage. You can see how this is going to end. Majority Hutu rebelled, seized power in the name of the majority rule, imposed an apartheid-like system in reverse, and oppressed the Tutsi bitterly. Faced with discrimination and increasing Hutu violence, most Tutsi fled to neighboring countries, and this is from The Triumph of Evil, which is the book over there. Yes?
The difference was this one.
Hutu extremists with government support launched a massacre against the Tutsis. Approximately 800,000 Tutsis were killed in a few months, mostly with machete. Now remember, only 14% of the 15% of the population is Tutsi. There's only 7 million people in Rwanda. What's 15% of 7 million? It's 1.5 million. That's okay. Half of the Tutsi population, approximately, was killed. And this didn't go on long. Relative to other. Oops. They did it over the radio. They made a call out over the radio to go chop down the tall trees, and that was the signal to go out and start killing. The Hutu officials who took over the government organized the murders of Tutsis nationwide. They used the government-run radio and press to do this. They also used the private newspapers and private radio station known as Radio Television de Mille Collègue, RTLM. RTLM told the population to look for the enemies and to kill them. Those Hutus, Tutsis and Hutus who opposed this fled to Europe or to Canada or the United States. Meanwhile, when the murder started, the RPF, the Tutsi-led Rwanda Patriotic Front, in Uganda, reinvaded Rwanda. The mess. Genocide ended when Tutsi rebel armies seized control of government. The world did nothing to stop the obvious human rights abuses. Because it was within a country, because it's ethnic civil wars between those people. Maybe other reasons why, but that was the party line argument. Over the course of genocide, nearly 1 million people were killed. More than 3 million fled to other countries. Typically, refugees go to the closest bordering country. They want to get out. And if you think about where we are, most of the countries bordering Rwanda, Sudan, et al., aren't in the best economic shape, aren't in the best infrastructural shape to take an influx. So it just kind of it just exacerbates and it affects other countries' ability to take care of their own people. Let's see, the United Nations established an International Criminal Tribunal for Rwanda, which has been trying high-level Tutsi officials for crimes against humanity when local governments have resorted to tribal councils called Gatzia, sanctioning the estimated 80,000 people involved in the genocide. This is from Terry George from Hotel Rwanda. It's a movie, by the way. I have a better one. Enemy at the Gates. All right. Okay. Now, here is Yugoslavia. All right. 2006. Here we go. Ethnic divisions led to human rights violations in Yugoslavia after the Cold War. 92, 95, 9, little thing down there, 2006. So all of that was Yugoslavia. Here we go. 1 is Bosnia-Herzegovina, 2 is Croatia, 3 is Macedonia, 4 is Montenegro, 5 is Serbia, 5A is Kosovo, 5B is Vojvodina, and 6 is Slovenia. 5A and 5B aren't technically countries. Oh, it's still a region. Oh no, I'm thinking of Chechnya. Sorry. Okay. All right. In 91, Croatia and Slovenia declared their independence and defended it from Serbia, led by President Slobodan Milosevic. Slobodan Milosevic and the Serbians wanted to make a Serbian Yugoslavia. They left, and they left, and he's like, no. And they're like, yes. And they stayed left. By the way, remember, this is where World War I started. There they are. There they are. Look at that. Okay. Thank you. People can read and follow. Okay. There he is, Slobodan. Oh man, Slobodan. There is a very good, very long, very thorough documentary on the birth of all these countries post end of the Cold War on YouTube. Really, really good. If you've got like a night and just want to nerd out. Civil war spread to Bosnia-Herzegovina, where Serbs, 30% of the population, refused to live under Bosnian Muslim rule. This is a true story. A man held a concert in Sarajevo just like that. And 10 years prior, or 8 years prior, the Olympics were there. The civil war between Serbs and Bosnians involved rape, murder of civilians, the use of concentration camps. Here is the Federation of Bosnia and Herzegovina. The Dayton Agreement in 95. Intervention by NATO forces against Bosnian Serbs led to a settlement dividing Bosnia between the two ethnic groups. That's why you get Bosnia and Herzegovina. The issue there, well, you got Croats in there too. Croats are Christian. All right. In 1996, Kosovo, mostly ethnic Albanian, declared independence from Yugoslavia. It was dominated politically and by the Serbs under Milosevic. Milosevic authorized a campaign of ethnic cleansing to intimidate Albanians into leaving Kosovo and to murder those who refused. So Milosevic wanted that land as part of Serbia. The Kosovoans, what? 96? The Kosovoans, maybe that's what they're called, Kosovites. I maybe no disrespect. But no, we want to be our own country. They're like, well, no, you're going to leave. I'm going to kill you, but I want this land. In 1999, 3 years later, NATO bombed Serbian troops, forcing withdrawal from Kosovo. By 8,600 Albanians were killed. 750,000 were expelled. 90% of the population left. So Milosevic almost pulled it off. By the way, the president can call for military strikes. The president does not need Congress for this. The president can call for a consistent, consecutive bombing for 89 days without congressional support. Once he gets to 90 days, you have to go get Congress and call it a war. So after 89 days, Clinton stopped. 2 days later, he picked it up again. And he just rained missiles down on the Serbia. Executive action. There's the one. The Serbs voted Milosevic out of office 7 years later, turned him over to the War Crimes Tribunal in the Netherlands. My cousin, Tina Tanner, lives in the Netherlands, married a Dutch guy, lives in the Netherlands. She used to work for the World Court. And she was working there during this trial. And she was so disappointed he died before trial. Like, he died in jail. Because she wanted to work that trial. I was like, oh, man. Anyway. Milosevic confronts his final jury. Okay. Oh, yay. Okay. In 2003, conflict broke out in Darfur. Darfur is a region of Sudan, of the entire country. Darfur region, between Christians and Muslims, after the AU, the African Union, failed to work it out. This was over farmland. Yes. The Janjaweed, those people back there, Muslim militia with Sudanese government support killed 300,000 Christians and forced 3 million to flee to neighboring Chad for the hair. In 2011, South Sudan, mostly Christian, declared independence. World's response to the human rights violations were minimal. In the United Nations and NGOs. NGOs are non-government organizations. Red Cross. What's the little shoebox Christmas present thing through the church? You put stuff in, they get shoeboxes full of anyway. That kind of thing. They are the United Nations and these organizations and countries throughout the world recognize the problem. Their response to the problem is mixed at best. You know, how to handle it, I see you. And then and it goes back to the statement I made earlier, like what's it worth? Like, what's the threshold? What's the equilibrium price of your own electability and doing? I mean, what's the right thing to do? And is it worth it to do the right thing? Yes.
Just answer.
Okay. All right. That's your penultimate lecture. I'm going to record science and technology tonight. Tomorrow's environmentalism. So now we'll look at the plight of the planet. And that's how we'll end our time learning stuff. If you have any questions, hang out. If y'all want to play Kahoot, hang out. I'll see everybody tomorrow. Thank you all very much. And peace.